Well, hello, Angel Bismark Curiel.
Hi, Steven. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, good. I think, you know, these things always make me nervous, but I think,
Really?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is about people asking me questions in
Hmm.
this like sort of format or context that brings up the nerves, I guess. Wanting to make sure that I say the right thing just because understand like the influence of media and how it can travel. And I think
Right.
particularly for me, I like to take my time as I articulate stuff. And so sometimes I feel like I can't really take that much time when these sort of things are happening, just because I understand there's time crunches and da da da,
Hmm.
and there's a whole shebang of it all. But I think I can breathe a little easier with you doing it.
Well, take me back to the last, sort of the last month of your life, because I know you were
Hmm.
just away for a little bit, and taking a time to recharge. And obviously, we
Hmm.
spent a lot of time together, the past 7 months, in New York, filming the last
Hmm.
season, and you're now a couple of weeks out of
Hmm.
having finished all of your work as Lil Poppy on Pose. And so I'm just wondering, like, where are you at now, like a month
Mm,
later, now that you've had like a little bit more time to process and digest that part of your journey, not
mhm,
just as an actor, but just as a person, because I know that the
mm,
show really changed you and opened you up. So I'm just curious, like,
mm.
where are you at now in all of that?
Whew. Well, I think definitely from an actor's perspective, uh, I probably consider myself a freelancer, right?
Mm.
And so there's this nerve-wracking element of Pose wrapping up, and then, before it had even finished, my mind was already like, well, what's the next job gonna be? I got to start making sure I secure that, and start worrying about where I'm at financially and all these things, that sort
Mhm.
of start making my heart just race. But I had some time off in Hawaii that I didn't really know I needed, and I was just so calm
Mm.
and relaxed. I felt the most comfortable I had ever been. Like I was just riding around, in the car, shirt off, no shoes, just enjoying, the forest, the trees, the oceans, the sand. And it
I'm not a little jealous, not even a little bit.
not even a little bit. Well,
No.
that's on you. No. But I think the reason why I really needed the trip is because I was getting to this headspace, right? Coming back and auditioning in particular, and then getting really, really close to some amazing projects that I really wanted to be a part of. And then, them going with someone else or it falling through or whatever the case may be. And then,
Right.
I have to, it forced me to remind myself in taking that time and taking that big pause to sort of check in where I was at emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, to say, hey, you just got done working. You just got done probably filming the 7 hardest months you've ever had to go through. So it's okay to not worry about what are you going to do next, which I think often for creatives and particularly actors, when you're done with a big project, they're like, and it's been the question that gets asked. So what are you doing next? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm still going into, these auditions and submitting these self tapes and reading these um, roles that the casting directors are calling for all inclusive, but then I read these scripts and then the script is, you know, asking for Caleb with beautiful blonde hair and blue eyes, and I'm like, okay, got it. So you're not really looking for me, you just want a pat on the shoulder for calling in someone. And so that's been, I don't want to say a downer, but it's been a challenge.
Right.
It's been a challenge, and the time off in Hawaii just helped me breathe a little better and sort of take a step back from that and say, you know, there are roles out there. You may not see them as of now. People are probably just still writing them. Projects haven't been greenlit, you know, et cetera, and it's okay to just breathe and take a little time for yourself is where I'm at right now. I want to recharge, love on my body, write, you know, because I also understand that if I wait around my whole life for someone to give me a job, I will never get the career that I long for.
Mm,
And so I know a big part of that is making sure that I'm also being a big player in creating that career. And a lot of that comes with creating my own material.
right.
And so
And
picking up
advocating for
that pen.
yourself too.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
So I'm curious, based on what you were just sharing,
Mm,
specifically around auditioning, and I think what you just articulated is so critically important, not just for young Latinx actors, but I think for
mhm,
all actors
mhm,
of color, is, you know, that more often than not, you're probably going to have to not just fight to get into the room, but
mhm,
also prove that, you know, you have the ability to and the skills to do all the things that your white contemporaries can do as well. And
mhm,
oftentimes, as you just pointed out, are also auditioning for roles that weren't specifically looking for you, like those weren't
mhm,
written with you in mind. And so I'm curious, having just come off of Pose where, you know, Boppy wasn't on the page, was specifically written for a young Latinx actor. But
mhm,
beyond that, once we got to know and love you, Angel, we then were writing to your abilities, right? And writing to your skills. And so I'm just curious, like, what in inhabiting and playing him for the last 3 seasons, what are
mhm,
you going to take away, or thus far,
mhm.
in terms of the rooms you've been in where you've been auditioning, you know, post Pose? I'm curious, like, what have you sort of taken from him and taken from the journey, um, and used in those rooms?
Yeah, well, I think for starters, a very big thing that I saw Poppy do because I got an opportunity to do these things while being on a set, was to see his willingness to never quit. You know, it was really refreshing to play this character that would get hit with these challenges, and he was never
Right.
submissive to them. He always said, "Okay, well, there has to be another way. What is that other
Mm,
way?" Right. So when
mm,
Angel's career fell through, you know, to see that it wasn't just, it's okay, baby, we're gonna be all right. You know, he stepped forward and said, all right, it's gonna be okay, but let me figure out how we can make this okay. Bet. Let me
right.
start, let me start my own thing and we gonna do this together. And so for me, as I move forward and as I get in these rooms and I hear, you know, these very disappointing things come out of casting directors' mouth where you're like, particularly when I got here, which I didn't really experience it in New York as much, but I saw a little bit
Hmm.
of racism here. I
Oh, wow.
remember stepping into a casting office, and before I even said a lick of English, she was just like, you know, we're not looking for no New Yorkers here, right? And so just for an actor stepping into already an uncomfortable space to hear that, you know, I'm like, what do you want me to do? You know, if I have a little bit
Yeah.
of of some slang in my tongue, it is what it is, you know.
Right.
But that aside is this understanding of there's so many uncontrollable factors that are out there. But one thing I do and can control is not just how I work around them, but what I can do in spite of them. And again, reverting back to, you know, A, making sure I'm taking care of my craft and doing the best that I can as an actor so that
Mhm.
when I step in these rooms, despite my skin color, despite my hair texture, they can never ever say, "Oh, and on top of that, he was a bad actor."
Right.
um, so doing that and making sure that that's always tip top and that I'm always growing and evolving as an actor is vital. And then again, finding and creating material for myself,
Right.
which is what Poppy basically did, right? He
Mhm.
went from his drug dealer stage to all the way fast forward a couple seasons after, he's working in Miss Ford's office and has his own office and has his own management company and he's doing the thing. Is how I would love for my career as an actor to transpire. I look at you and everything that you've done and I'm like, I want to do what Steven is doing right now. I understand it's going to take time. I understand I have to, find my lane and exercise, what I'm doing as an actor and make sure that that's staying in its place and that I'm doing that because that's going to be the building foundation where I can say,
Right.
okay, I've done XYZ projects, but guess what? I just wrote this dope ass script. Let's get it popping. What can we do? And then from there, all
Yeah.
right, bet. You saw what I can do as an actor. You've seen what I can do as a writer. Now let me hide behind the camera and let me direct a little something too and start building. Let me produce. Let me
Mm.
create. All things again I admire from you and you know you're a blueprint for me. And so
Mm.
I know this is just the start. This is just the start.
It absolutely is. And I have to say that, you know, hearing what you just said, it always, I never take um, being representative of possibility for people lightly.
Mm,
So thank you for what you said, because that to me, it means a lot. And again, and I don't take that lightly at all. But I also want to say that I think that you specifically are in such a good position in terms of moving through your career, because I think about where I was when I was your age, and I was still just trying to figure things out. Frankly, I'm 40 and I'm still trying to figure things out. Like I don't have it. I mean, I think on the surface, it all looks, there's a shiny veneer and it looks like
mhm.
he's got it all together. And the reality is, like, I think we're always all evolving and growing and
Mhm,
changing and just making our way through life. And specifically, when you look at this past year, and everything that, globally, I don't think a single person wasn't impacted by everything that was happening, whether it was the civil unrest in our country,
mhm,
a pandemic. Everyone was touched by it, and everyone has had to sort of recalibrate.
mhm,
So, I just want to say, I think it's incredible that you are in the position that you're at. But I also think
mhm,
you touched on evolution. And the thing
mhm,
that came to mind for me when thinking specifically about you is not just the growth of the character,
mhm,
but also just seeing the growth in you as a human, seeing the growth in you as an actor. I cannot wait for people to come in and watch this third season, because I'm so incredibly proud of the work
mhm,
that you did this season. And I think you uh, I'm going to tell on you and say, I know that you're very hard on yourself, but the reality is, like, the work that you did this season is so delicate and so beautiful. And you added new textures and emotional layers to the character of Poppy that I don't even think I knew was possible, even while we were writing it on the page. And so I think that's so beautiful and so incredible. And I know we've talked privately, so I know that you felt that throughout this season. I'm curious for you specifically. Um, I mean, I guess you could talk about it from both perspectives, both as a human
mhm,
and as an actor. I'm curious, like, um, where where did the rest of the cast fall into that evolution
mm,
for you? You know, you had an opportunity to work with, I think, some really beautiful performers, you know,
mm,
like MJ Rodriguez and India
mm,
Moore, you know, and so I'm curious, like being in such proximity to other individuals, other actors who are also
mm,
going through their own evolution and process,
mm,
like how did that impact and influence
mm.
you?
Well, to be honest, I think from the jump, I felt kind of almost like the weakest link,
Hmm.
and I would look at MJ, beautiful MJ, she is just, yeah, I'm just enamored by how she can just step in front of a camera and just wow me every single time. I forget what scene it was. There is a scene in this new season, um, that it was the group of us, and I remember Blanca is sort of giving her speech, to each character.
Ah, in the finale.
Yes,
Yes, yeah.
yes. And it was, I think for me, it was so impactful because I just remember stepping outside of my head. And I think for me, not only as an actor, but as a human being, I'm very heady. And so I'm always longing for instinct and to be present, right, with the person in front of me. And MJ's performance in that just had me weeping take after take after take after take because I was just there locked in with her. She just showed up and she opened herself up. And I was like, this is the most beautiful thing. And I want to do the same. I want to do the same. And I think that speaks to the same with India. That speaks to the same with Delon. That speaks to the same with Dominique, with Haley, and with did I say Delon already?
Hmm.
I said Delon, Billy, Dominique, Haley, India, MJ. Yes. And being in these scenes, I was like, I gotta bring it. I gotta bring it and I gotta do more and I gotta be better. Every single word, every single line, every single emotion that I'm trying to present or evoke, it has to be precise, it has to be intentional, and it has to be clear. Because look at my castmates and look at the work that they are doing.
Yeah.
I am honored and privileged to be here in this space with them. And I would be dishonoring them if I don't bring it, if I don't make sure that I'm constantly pushing myself to evolve as a
Right.
person and as an actor.
Right.
So being in these spaces with them, you know, I would say has helped me be a better actor because I showed up to set and I'm like, there's no way these people are this good. And it feels like they're
Hmm.
so effortless with it,
I
So I
have to
had
say
to,
though,
yeah.
just jump in really quickly because you and I had a moment on set during the finale.
Mm,
It was you and Delon and I,
I know exactly
and
the moment.
we were
Yeah.
shooting this really intense, very
Yes.
emotional scene, and we were outside, and it was freezing. It's in, you know, middle of
Yes.
winter in New York
Yes.
City, and
Yes.
it was just, but that moment for me was one that, you know, and I happened to walk in on a moment. Like I think you
Mhm.
and
Me and
Delon
Delon, yeah.
were
Yeah.
having your own private moment, and I just sort of I was, you know, we had just called cut on the scene that we were filming, and I just sort of intruded on a moment between the two of you. But it was, I just saw the two of you and I walked over and I could
Mhm.
feel the emotional intensity of
Mhm.
it, and so I said I gotta walk. So I walked in on this moment between you and Delon. I intruded on this
Mhm.
private moment the two of you were having, but it was so important for me
Mhm.
to let the two of you know that you both have been bringing it
Mhm.
from the beginning, and that all of the incredible work that you two do, and the ways that we really, I think, quite beautifully landed the plane this season had so
Mhm.
much to do with
Mhm.
honoring what you all have been doing as performers from the beginning. You
Mhm.
know, I think that's what it is that, you know, you showed us all the raw material, and so it
Mhm.
was, you know, what you were just talking about with in that scene with MJ just made me think. It's like, you know, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to watch the finale yet, but that moment and seeing you in that scene in that moment,
Mm,
it's so there's no dialogue, but it's
mm,
like we're emotionally there with
mm,
you and with every
mhm,
character.
mhm,
And so I think it's for those of us like myself and Janet Mock and any of the other directors, Tina Mabry,
mhm,
you know, we're sitting behind that monitor, and so we can see it. And I think more specifically for Janet and I, since we can see it, you know, it then translates to opportunities on the
mm,
page, you know, because
mm.
the thing that's so exciting for me is to see a moment where I'm like, oh, oh, they're going there and I know what they're capable of. And so then I can go back to the page and I
Yeah,
can push even harder, you know. And so I know that I'm wondering, with all that said, were
yeah.
there moments for you specifically in this last season
Mm,
where you read a script and thought,
mhm,
I don't know that I can do that?
mm. Ooh, definitely six. Definitely six. Definitely six. Definitely six. Um, as you know, there was some stuff that was asked of me in six that I thought I would never do in front of an entire cast and crew, you know, which is definitely like what, over 100 people. And
And what is
then,
that thing? What is that thing, Angel?
can I say it?
I
Am
think
I
you
allowed
can
to say it?
tease it.
Um, well, I was asked to showcase a particular skill, something I had never done before, and I had to, you know, receive help from a coach and figure out how I was going to enter this world that I knew nothing about. And then on top of that, realizing it that I was gonna have to do it not just in front of you know an actor or two, but that it was going to be several people in this room looking to me, you know, in this moment,
Mhm.
that I felt so vulnerable. I felt so naked. I had never done
Mm.
anything like this before. And then in the back of my head, I was also thinking, and then when this airs, millions of people are going to see it, and I have to, I don't know if I can do this.
Wow.
But in that same token, when I did it, I felt so free because I was so naked. And again, going back to my
Mm.
headiness, I was like, I can't be up here, because if I'm up here, I will lose everything that I need to focus on to be able to perform this. And so it helped me really stay in the moment and enjoy what I was doing. And it helped me, yeah, enjoy it even though I was nervous. But I think for me, oh, the biggest surprise was watching it,
Mm.
um, because so my I think we spoke about this briefly as well. My grandparents were performers in the Dominican Republic during the
Mm.
1950s. My grandmother was a singer and dancer, and my grandfather was a an opera singer. He was an actor,
Mm.
and that that was his trade. Um, and it just sent me to a completely different place when I saw that scene, Stephen and Six, and I saw my grandfather reflected back at me, and I
Mm.
realized that I am my ancestors' wildest dreams come true.
Mhm.
And what a blessing it would have been for them to be alive to see that moment. Um, and it was a reminder of like, man, this is just the beginning. You got to keep going. You got to keep going, and
Yeah.
you got to keep that engine running. And it doesn't matter what casting director believes in you or doesn't, or, you know, if what I'm picking up on the paper feels authentic, or do I feel tokenized? It doesn't matter. You have to keep trucking, because at the end of the day, there will be moments, and there will be characters, and there will be roles, and there will be scripts that make you feel seen, that make you feel loved, and that allow you to bring your people with you, which I think at the end of the day is what we want, right? That's like why we chose this medium, despite it being extremely white and extremely capitalistic. We are now coming into this space and into these rooms and saying, and into these rooms and into these spaces and saying, no, like there's so many other stories that need to be told, that haven't been told, that are being erased. You know, like the fact that Pose has been on air for 3 seasons, and it's a show that not only centers Blackness and brownness, but it also centers queerness and transness, is why we have Veneno. Off the rip, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? Is why now we have these shows that are building based upon what you started.
Yeah.
You did this. You did the work of going into these rooms and not accepting no for an answer time and time again. And that's another reason why I tell you that you are a blueprint for me, because I'm experiencing the same thing in a different capacity. I'm still going into these rooms and being told no, but I have to keep going. I have to keep pushing, because you have showed us what it can be when you don't accept that no. And that scene in 6 was just it sent me to a completely different headspace. So
And I have to say to you, other than your performance being so wildly brave and beautiful, I want to go back to what you said about your grandparents, because
mm,
the truth is that they absolutely are seeing it. And I hope that you know that they they live in you. And so the reality is, like, they're not gone. They've never been gone, because every time you hear action, every time you read a script, every time you open your mouth, and every time you inhabit a character, your grandparents are right there living with you and living through you. So they're always with you. They are never gone. And how fortunate are all of us through you to not only know and love you, but now also know and love them. It's pretty great.
yes, sir. Thank you for that.
Hmm.